Welcome to Diaspora, the show where we share the remarkable stories of immigrants from the Indian subcontinent. I'm your host, Aditya Mehta. Each week, we sit down with individuals who have made the journey and explore their experiences, their challenges, and their triumphs. We delve into their unique perspectives on adapting to a new culture while staying connected to their roots. Today, we are joined by Dhawal Doshi, who is the head of research and ESG at NWP, which is a large mall developer in Indonesia. Dhawal is from Surat in India and has spent his time in India, the US, and China before eventually moving to Jakarta, where he is now based with his wife Amruta and son Kedar. I have known Dhawal since 2006. We were at the University of Texas together, and I consider him to be one of my closest friends. He doesn't have a typical North American immigration story, but there's plenty to unpack, I promise. So with that, Dhawal, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
The first question for you is that if Surat were an American city, what would it be?
It's an interesting question. Of all the places I've lived in the US,
Yeah.
I think Surat is obviously a big city, a growing city, a lot of business, a lot of industries. It's not the top 5, but it's still pretty big, maybe in the top 10 or top 15.
Yeah.
I would put Surat maybe closer to Houston or Dallas.
Yeah, it's an oil town. People are brash. There's a lot of competition with other cities in the state. I would think Ahmedabad is the Dallas and Baroda would be the Austin.
Perhaps. I have not lived in the US, so I'm only speaking from...
Yeah, Rajkot would definitely be San Antonio or El Paso for that matter.
I can agree on that.
Yeah, great. Tell us about Surat as a city and what's unique, because it is a special place in India, if you ask me. What, according to you, what are the special things about the city?
So about half my life, obviously I was raised in Surat. I spent until I was 16, 18 years old, I was in Surat. And more than half my life, I've been out of India.
Yeah.
So I have a unique perspective of Surat from someone who's lived there all his life.
Sure.
And also from someone who's been outside for more than half the life, but keeps going back and forth.
Yeah.
I think Surat as a city, very welcoming to people from outside. There's no dominant language. It's in Gujarat. You could be from anywhere in India, and I think you can find a place. It has grown phenomenally over the past years. A lot of schools, universities, industries. I think the world's biggest office tower, more than 7 million square feet, has inaugurated in Surat. We got a new airport a few years back. It
was actually the world's largest city without an airport at one point. People would come to Bombay and then take flights.
Yeah. So you see that growth, a lot of new, it's also known as the flyover city of India.
Yeah, a lot of overpasses, as they call them in the US.
Correct. So one gets a sense of new people who come to Surat. They might feel it's a small city.
Yeah.
But really, it's actually a big city, but it's very well managed. So it's much easier to go from one place to the other in something which could have taken an hour now takes 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I think it's credit to the infrastructure that has kept up with the pace of the city.
I've always found it to be a very entrepreneurial and busy place. You come out of the railway station, there are people waiting with placards for picking up business passengers. That always tells me how much commercial activity is going on.
Correct.
And it's always been, and my brother, as our listeners know, is a stand-up comic. He said that whenever he takes a train to Surat, which is usually the fastest way to get to Surat from Bombay, he sees all these extremely pretty women dressed up and going to Surat, of all places. And then one day he asked one of them, like, you're too pretty to be going to a small town kind of situation. And turns out they were going there to model for ads for diamond businesses, because Surat is the world's diamond polishing hub and diamond trading hub even. I asked one of my previous guests, Shruti, who is from Orissa, whether she knew why there were almost 500,000 Oriyas in Surat, and they work in the diamond polishing industry. And it's a great example of when outsiders come, they do a job the locals don't want to do, and they are otherwise good citizens. There really should not be any problem with that.
Correct.
And it's a living example of that.
It is, and I think the statistic is about 90% of the world's diamonds are polished in Surat.
Wow.
It's a pretty big statistic.
Yeah.
It's also known for textiles.
Yeah.
But I think in recent years, the industry side of the city has also developed. I don't have too many statistics, but
oil and gas refinery.
Oil and gas refinery, if you've heard of Hazira, it's one of the world's or Asia's largest industrial parks.
Yeah.
So that has also, and it still keeps growing. There's the top.
And it's a port as well.
It's a port as well. There's lots going on in Surat. Definitely the new high-speed rail that will commence between Mumbai and Ahmedabad. Surat is a stop in between. It's
of
a mill
course.
stop. Yeah, lots going on. Very exciting place. A lot of energy. I don't know what, as a tourist, there's not much to see as a tourist perhaps. But definitely
they
worth
had a
experience.
mini Eiffel Tower.
They did.
They
not anymore.
Yeah, because they built a flyover on top.
Correct.
I remember Surat to be a friendly, welcoming city with amazing food. But also, people are a bit aggressive, like a little brash. They cuss a lot. My mom is originally from South Gujarat. She is what you call an Anavil Brahmin from Valsad district. And they're known to be potty mouths. My mom personally is not, thankfully. But like that side of the family, they all cuss so much, even the women. So I always say it's the most aggressive city south of Delhi. But yeah, I haven't been there back in a long time, but I would love to go back and see how it has.
I would add one more thing. So my wife is from Ahmedabad. Right?
Yeah.
And she'd never been to Surat unless before she got married to me. And her first impressions of Surat was, Ahmedabad, obviously, it's very cultural.
Yeah.
Very strong Gujarati culture.
Of course.
Great language, dressing, food.
Yeah.
They take their culture and Gujarati heritage very seriously. Yeah. It's beautiful. Surat, on the other hand, she comes to Surat and default language is sometimes not even Gujarati, right? You go out to buy something, you're probably going to talk in Hindi. The person you speak with is not going to be from Gujarat.
Yeah.
And the Gujarati dialect that the people in Surat speak is very different from
very slang and less sophisticated.
Correct. So almost for someone, people in Ahmedabad take pride in their language.
Sure.
Very nice command over language. And you come to Surat and it's almost like this doesn't feel like Surat, right? It feels more like an extension of Bombay. And I think until the 60s, it was probably a part of Maharashtra.
Yeah, so Gujarat and Maharashtra were one state, which is Bombay Presidency. And on May 1, 1960, they were split on linguistic grounds. But Surat is 3 hours from Bombay by train, and it is 6 hours from Ahmedabad by train. So it would make sense that Surat would identify itself as a mini Bombay versus a city in Gujarat because it was all one province. And then based on the language, obviously, it went on to the Gujarat side. And I think I've seen people who actually commuted every day to Bombay from Surat because they had some specialist niche job or whatever. The 6:35 a.m. Shatabdi from Bombay Central, which I've dropped you off to once or twice, is 3 hours you're in Surat to start your business day. It's a very interesting city, and we'll post some links in our resources for this episode about Surat and all the things that we talked about. So you're from an industrial family as well. So tell us more about your family background and growing up in Surat in your early days up to the time you were ready for college.
Interestingly, so I come from a joint family. My family runs a business which has been in existence since 1930.
Wow.
In terms of profile, it is all to do with the heating industry.
Yeah.
So everything from commercial to industrial specialized heaters. So either your heaters at home to heat your water, or at that time there were even smaller heaters you put in the tumbler to warm the bucket water. So everything from that to boilers and kitchen equipment. So the wide range of everything to do with the heating industry. So the company has credit to a lot of India's first, or whether it's water heaters or irons or toasters and so on and so forth. So there's a very long list. So that was that. I think now it's like fourth generation, started from my grandfather's father. So it runs. But I was in Surat until I was in the 12th grade. But after I was very sure not to join the family business. I was really interested to study.
Yeah. So that's something that is common between us. I did spend almost 7 years in the family business before leaving. Was that ever an expectation? And if not, were your parents still disappointed when you decided not to join them?
No, actually, they were not disappointed. Expectation, I think initially there may have been, but there was a series of events that happened which was beyond my control, which made the timing not very efficient. So I think it was better for me to be away from there, because being from the family business, perhaps you would relate, you cannot be in the family at the same place and not be part of the business. Business and home are the same.
Yep.
You really had to be away from everything.
Worked and commuted with my parents.
So it's if you need to be away from business, you really have to be really away from everything. So, and I was genuinely interested in studying. I wouldn't say I was a brilliant student, but I was genuinely interested to study more.
Yeah.
And I was interested in liberal arts, economics. Instead of going to Delhi, which would have been, Delhi has good schools, universities for economics. I think my parents were more comfortable sending me to US than they would have been to Delhi at that time.
That was going to be my next question. So what drove, was it always assumed that you will study abroad, or did something spark that in you? And how did you land on UT as a college?
Few members of my family, like my dad, my uncles, they have studied in the US for their masters. My dad actually did his MBA at Arlington. So he was very familiar with Texas, and he knew Austin was a very good university. Yeah. Secondly, I think I looked at quite a lot of universities, but the public universities were way more cost efficient as compared to private universities, and the cost of living in Texas was much less than other states at that time.
Yeah.
And in terms of ranking, UT Austin was one of the top public ranked schools. So for all these reasons, I think UT Austin came across as a natural choice. I did not apply to many universities. I was glad that I got into UT Austin.
Did you use one of those consultants who have offices in the mall and get commissions from the colleges?
No, I did talk to someone who helped me kind of apply, because I was not aware of the process. Everything happened. It was not planned. It was not a long plan, and everything happened in 2 months. I signed up for the last SAT possible that year.
Yeah.
I started mid-year in spring semester. So someone did kind of help me out, let me know that, you need to apply for this SAT now.
Yeah.
This week. If not, you're not going to be able to go next year. So there was someone who helped me plan that way. But except for that, no, I think I did everything on my own, writing the essays and recommendation letters from teachers and all of that. I think it was a very nice process. And to get admission at the end, I think I felt nice, proud about the whole process after that.
Did you have any funny moments in your early days at UT, like from not knowing the culture or the accent, or how we use different words for different things?
It's 20 years back. I think I recall my first day in UT was when you register for classes.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it funny, but I was, I did not have a laptop at that time. And, you are assigned time slots to register for classes based on your name.
Yeah.
There was a public library, FAC, if you recall, and there were 4 standing Mac computers there. And I was not aware that there is a library behind where you can sit and there are lap computers and you can use.
Yeah.
So I thought I have to register, and I spent like 3 or 4 hours just standing there on that big Mac in the public area and try to register for classes. So, and then I realized I might as well have just sat behind in the...
It was called UGL.
It was called UGL, right? When it became FAC since I joined.
Yeah.
So I think there were many. It was, I recall Texas doesn't get very cold.
Yeah.
My parents asked me to pack warm stuff. I said, no, it's fine. I'll be fine. And then I had to walk from my dorm to the first class that I had. It was at 8 a.m. I thought, we are used to waking up early and no problem.
And you joined in spring, if I remember.
And I joined in spring.
Yeah.
And I registered for like 18 hours or something. I can do 5 hours, this, that. And then after the first day, I could barely find the class on the map when it was so cold and it was raining, and suddenly the weather changed. So there was a lot of getting used to the...
I have a funny story from my early days, which I haven't shared yet. I was getting used to the campus orientation and what's where. And I would base everything off of the clock tower. And I was like, I'll remember which side the clock was on. And then about 4 days later, I realized there is a clock on all 4 sides. So I would keep getting lost because I said the clock was on this side, but I'm supposed to go that side. Yeah, the early days were just an extension of that. Since it's early episodes, my listeners are getting to know me better as well. What were your first impressions of me? And I know it was a very long time ago, but we met in the context of the cricket club.
Yeah. When I joined, it was in the spring, so fewer students, and the only friends I had, so we went into international orientation was perhaps 4 or 5 days before the actual classes started.
Yeah.
So it was almost like, it felt great. I mean, it was a great campus, very nice gym, good food, and I made some friends at international orientation, and all of them were I think most of them were European. There are some Latin Americans as well. So I was hanging out that was my first set of friends over there. So I hung out with them, went to some co-op parties, house parties, this, that. And I was with a friend of mine who was from France, right across, waiting for the bus when I saw you and our friend Siddharth. And those were probably the first time. I mean, I'm sure I've seen Indians, but in such, you're just standing next
we
to
were probably holding a cricket bat.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. So obviously I was like, oh wow, then I play tennis, I like cricket.
Yeah.
So yeah, I asked you and that time, like, oh, I'm new here.
Yeah.
Can you help me?
You
tell me more about the cricket club. Where can we?
You were part of our famous win against the Excaliburs.
Yes.
Where
I bowled the last over.
You bowled the last over. Yeah. For our listeners, we had a really amazing first game as the Longhorn Cricket Club when we took part in the Central Texas Cricket League, which was outside of the college. And we were widely considered to be the underdogs. We didn't put up too many runs on the board. And we, got some quick wins, quick wickets, and we were in a very strong position. Then the inexperienced captain that I was, we got complacent to a point where it was the last over. We needed 6 runs. They needed 6 runs. And Dhawal, the champion, was bowling. And Dhawal was not a conventional bowler. Like, we had other full-time bowlers. And second or third ball, I think we run out them and won the game. And it was probably the highlight of my cricketing life even now.
We went until the 5th ball or so. There were a few balls which was, we built the pressure. They couldn't score and then they had to run. And we ran.
I think you jumped on the ball and then as soon as you hit the wicket, the team jumped on you probably.
Yeah. I think 10 sweaty guys running towards me and jumping on me.
Yeah. Those were some really amazing times for sure.
First impression, you and Sid, coming back to that, Sid, to me, he was taller and he seemed to be like a 4.0 GPA kind of a guy, which he was. Yeah. So I was right on that. Yeah, but you guys turned out to be you were friendly from the start.
Yeah.
Sid, I did know, I thought, I was new to US. You guys seemed as if you've been in the US for a long time.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say intimidated, but I don't know how it would break that ice or become a good friend or you'll be funny or so it took some time to kind of, these are the same, just like me. We can.
And the rest is history. So thanks for sharing that memory. Let's take a short break now. And when we return, we'll talk about how you got involved with the Chinese side of the program, learning Mandarin, and then eventually moving to China after you graduated. Yeah, stay tuned and we'll be back after these messages.
When you're high, you feel different. You think different, you talk different, you draw different, you listen to music different, but you probably knew that. Problem is, you also drive different, and not in a good way. That's why driving high is illegal everywhere. So if you're high, just don't drive. Make a plan to get a sober ride. Because if you feel different, you drive different. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Are you ready to discover remarkable stories of resilience and cultural connection? This is Diasporaa, a show sharing the journeys of first-generation immigrants from the Indian subcontinent now building their lives in North America. Inspiring, insightful, and always engaging, Diasporaa offers a unique perspective on the immigrant experience. Join me, Aditya Mehta, my guests, on the Diasporaa Show every Wednesday at 2 p.m. right here on KKNW.
Alternative Talk 1150, the talk of the sound.
Welcome back to Diaspora on KKNW, where we share interesting stories of first-generation immigrants from the Indian subcontinent. We're talking to Dhawal Doshi, head of research at NWP, and my dear friend. Before we get back to talking to Dhawal, I want to take a moment to remind you to subscribe to our channel on YouTube. You can find all our episodes in video form there, right from the first one. Dhawal, you started out a little bit after I did. And ever since I remember, you've always been interested in China and you would be spending summers there and you were learning Mandarin. So what piqued that interest to begin with?
So a lot of the key moments in my life have sort of been spontaneous, right? Spontaneous in that moment, but I'm sure there's a build up to that over time. I realized that I wanted to always learn a foreign language. So that's something which fascinates me. So when I joined UT, in fact, I registered for a French class. And then for about a week, I was still going to the French class. One of my friends from orientation, the one we met with, the French guy, his roommate was a white American, and he was a Russian and a Chinese major in his senior year who was graduating, and he seemed like a very brilliant student. Pretty sure of, I think he was going to law school. And I was really surprised that you have majors like Russian and Chinese. And he said, yeah, why don't you can. So I asked him, like, can I really learn Chinese? Like, yeah, it's a great program. You should learn. So the next thing I did, I went back to FAC and tried to look the course, and it was full. So I had to get special permission. I approached the teacher. I said, I want to learn Chinese because at that time, way back 2006, China is obviously a big country, very strong economy. Now, 2006 was what you would call a growing, China was still growing. India was obviously also growing, maybe not at the same level, but both China and India were growing economies at that time. And I thought, I'm not an IIT engineer. I don't have those kind of technical skills, but language I thought I can do. This is something I think I would be good at. I would like something to do. So I thought if I learn Chinese, being someone from India, maybe in future there could be other opportunities which open up just because of my language ability. So that was the start.
And when you say Chinese, you mean Mandarin?
Correct. Mandarin, Chinese, yeah.
So apart from taking courses at UT, what else did you do to immerse yourself in the language? Because in India, we don't have an immersive approach to language learning. I studied French for 5 years in school, and I can't speak it to save my life.
No, so the good thing is I went with zero background, obviously, is Chinese, right? I did not know a friend or neither of my relative or someone who spoke Chinese. So I had zero background. I had no expectation of what it could be or where I am. And secondly, the course was very well structured, right? So I would say more than half of the time I spent in UT was learning Chinese. So it was very intense. You miss one day and be left behind. Your exams, not only did I join the class 1 week late, for the first week of class, I had no idea that we had a course packet. And the course packet listed a schedule that there are tests every day when you enter the class.
Wow.
So every day when I walked in the class and there's a test, and I looked at my friends and I did not know what they were doing. Maybe there's a surprise test that then I know about. And 2 or 3 days later, I asked someone, like, what is it that you guys are writing? How do you know there's a test? He said, there's a course packet. Like, what course packet? So that's how far behind I was. 2 weeks behind a Chinese class where they don't even accept people if they are 2 days late.
Yeah.
So I had to spend a lot of time and energy, going. The professor was great, and I went to her office hours and spent extra time. But what I realized is I really enjoyed it. The first assignment homeworks I did, I was practicing Chinese characters, and I almost did not want to trash the papers because it looked so cool.
Yeah.
So the program is intense. If you keep up with it, they really make sure that you learn the language. I think it has a great Hindi-Urdu program as well. And I bet the students you meet there will speak better Hindi than you and I.
I took an advanced Hindi literature class in my last semester as a pass-fail. I had to change it to a pass-fail. The first day I go in, there were 12 students, including me. 7 were not Indian. 4 were Indians from the US, and then me. And the professor was an old white lady. She was a scholar, Hindi and Urdu scholar. And the TA was like on her way to becoming a scholar. And I was like, I'm going to blow these people up. Like, I'm going to get, an A so easily. And I struggled because my Hindi was this dirty slang Bombay Hindi. And they all spoke very fluent and very beautiful, like grammatically correct Hindi. I had to change it to a pass-fail because I could not keep up with the level of reading required and the clean speech required. Because you learn Hindi on the streets and with your friends, and sure, you studied in school, but it's not the same. So our Hindi program was the little bit I did get exposed to it, it was quite amazing.
So I'll tell you, that's exactly the reaction I get when I speak Chinese, even to date.
Yeah.
Even when I go to Hong Kong, even when I moved around in China, that's exactly the feedback that people give me, that my Chinese is very, they call it Piaochuan, formal Chinese, right? Not, Beijing accent, no slangs.
Sure.
So that is the level of teaching and the quality of teaching that UT, enable me to get. So that was one. But in terms of immersion, after my third semester, they had a program called the Maymester program where and there were many countries for Maymesters, many different programs as well, different disciplines. So there was one Maymester where you spent 4 weeks I think 6 weeks in Beijing with a professor from UT, with students from UT, but the class is in a foreign campus. I took that opportunity. I thought it was a summer session. It'd be pretty cool to go to China, test my Chinese skills. So I went to Beijing after my third semester in the summer. I went for 6 weeks to Beijing.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it. And I saw many foreigners over there who spoke Chinese, and which inspired me that, maybe someday I can speak that, because there were so many of them. But most importantly, we lived on campus with local students, and there were 0 Indians on campus.
Yeah.
And many of the teachers that we met there who've been teaching for years and years, 30, 40-year experience, they were happy to see me, and they were in fact surprised. And we've never seen an Indian on campus in so many years. So I think that was the key inspiration for me. And this was pre-Olympics. It was Beijing pre-Olympics.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, this is something I can do which can be different, and maybe, where my competitive advantage lies. And, that inspired me to keep doing more and more.
After college, did you move to China immediately, or I think there was a gap between that? If I remember correctly, you were doing some translation related stuff briefly. So tell us about that.
So what happened is I graduated. So every summer that I was at UT, I went to China.
Yeah.
So I did not have an experience of looking for a job or creating a CV, doing internships, or doing interviews. At the back of my mind, obviously I was wrong in that assumption, but I thought if I put my mind to it, because I'm a good student, because I've done all these things, maybe I'll find something. I never thought that I will not find. I thought it should not be that difficult, but when I didn't even have a resume. And then suddenly I graduated. I was in my final semester, and I was offered to straight entry into the master's degree. You may not know this, but I was offered a scholarship to do master's at UT without having to go through the GMAT or the GRE. They offer it to select students. And I went, and you can take master's level courses while you are doing an undergrad. So it can save you time. And I went to some classes, and, I realized that what I'm really lacking now is not more education, academics, but really work skills. So I decided to drop that program, graduate, and just go out there and work. And I really wanted to go to China. So because I was not well prepared, I tried a few things here. It didn't really work out well. I didn't even have a resume, but I really wanted to leave. I said that I'm young. The younger I am, if I make a mistake, easier it is to come out of that mistake. Many people actually suggested that, obviously friends, families who think, who want to look out for you, they suggested that I should stay back in the US, get some experience, and then go to China. But in my mind, I said, the longer I wait, the harder it's going to get to move. Right now is the time I want to explore. I'm not so much after money. I don't have responsibilities. So yes, I left the UT the day I graduated. I think the next day I was out of UT. A couple of days in New York on the way back to India. So I left. And even when I was at the airport in JFK, I recall I'd asked myself, are you sure you want to leave? Because the moment I got on that plane, I know I'm never coming back to the US with this visa. It's gone.
It's so hard.
It was very hard. It hit me that time, but I'm like, it's a leap of faith, a giant leap of faith.
Yeah. So I had a similar story where I had a job offer that was withdrawn, and I decided to go back, and it took me 10 years to make it back to this part of the world. It's once you leave the US, it's really difficult to come back without a lot of visa pains, as our listeners know, and we talk about regularly how much the visa pain is.
So it was very hard, obviously, to get to the US. But then, I made the decision, the leap of faith, to leave. But after going to India, so I went to India. I did not have a job. I did not have a plan. So obviously I had to go home first. Home at that time was Surat. And I just wanted to go to China. So I kept talking to people, please help me find an Indian company who has an office in China. Now let's see where I fit in. So until, I think it took about 3 or 4 months till I found a great, it's a very well-established Indian manufacturing company in Ahmedabad. Until I found that, I was lost. I was confused. It was not an easy phase of life. And I came across a translation gig in south of India in a village in Karnataka, somewhere 100 kilometers from Hampi. People, know. And it was about a Chinese group who was installing a big machineries in a power plant that the owner was making in his village as a way of giving back to the society. I had no knowledge of technical words.
Yeah.
I I just wanted to do something, earn something, and I did that for a month. I was over there translating before I got a job interview with this group in Ahmedabad, where then so I stopped this translation work and went back to getting a full-time job.
And what got you into China eventually?
So I joined this Ahmedabad group. It's one of the largest kind of in their sector related to the cement industry. And they had an office in Wuxi. It's a few hundred kilometers from Shanghai. But I had to spend about 6 months before I could move to China to understand the product, to understand how they work. I spent a couple of months in Ajman in UAE as well, because their international office was based out of UAE. And then when I went to China, obviously till the time I was working, it was a very engineering-driven group, great company, great people. I think it's one of a kind. But I was young. I'm not from an engineering background. And then when I went to China, it was also not in a big city like Shanghai or Beijing, where my friends are, or which are more glamorous and exciting to live. It was in a smaller city. I don't know, something like a Surat of China, right? Big city, but it was, as an expat, you don't want to live in Surat. You want to maybe go to Bombay or Delhi or Bangalore. So that is where I was. So I worked there for a couple of months, and I did not really, to be honest, did not like it. So I wanted to leave. So I came back, and then few months, and then again I was lost and confused. I prepared for masters, maybe London School of Economics or the likes. But then life got me back to China for some other work, which is where I met my very good friend from UT, who is a Chinese American, who I'm going to meet later today after this podcast. She was working with who then happened to be my boss, but she was working with them, and we just joked about finding a job in Shanghai. Then she introduced me to her boss at that time, and it worked out. It clicked. And what seemed to be so mysterious, so impossible, when it clicked, it just clicked. And in 2 days, I had a job, and in a few weeks, I moved to Shanghai.
That's a great story. How was it like living in Shanghai as an Indian person?
So, great question. I always spoke Chinese before I moved to. So going to Shanghai was a deliberate decision I made. I remember before leaving for Shanghai, I had an assignment in Delhi. I spent 3 or 4 days in Delhi, and then I had a one-way ticket to China. And at the airport, I forgot the airline, but at Delhi airport, they looked at me, you are going to China, or you are going on a one-way? It's not very common.
Sure.
But, it was exciting for me. This was like a dream come true. It was a blind shot in the dark, and, it worked out. So I was really happy to be moving to Shanghai. But because I spoke the language, my experience was very different than many other Indians who go there, who may be comfortable. I think there's quite a few Indians in the IT sector. They also had a cricket league there. And many Indians over there happen to be in the IT sector. There are some Indians also from the diamond sector from Surat, who are based there. Many of them, they tend to live, either they're working together, they're living in certain areas. I had zero Indians in my workplace or my kind of network. But knowing the language, I had a very different experience. I enjoyed it. If I was able to take time back, I did not want to leave Shanghai. I felt more at Shanghai than I would in India at that time. In between jobs, I spent 3 or 4 months. I was more comfortable living in Shanghai than I was in Surat. Very international city. 2011 to 15, when I was based in Shanghai, these were the wonder years. It was, the peak of the opening up of Shanghai, of China. You see more and more good things happening, more and more great restaurants, more and more great bars. Just like any other international city, you would find where a lot of, very fast city, a lot of interesting people from many parts of the world, many interesting Chinese who go abroad, they come back, they have all this knowledge. So I think it was a very exciting time in Shanghai. I had a very good time.
Did you work for NWP in Shanghai as well?
So similar, so different entity, but the same. So NWP is a real estate platform, a commercial real estate development platform listed by US private equity group in Indonesia. In China, the same US private equity group was doing the same business of real estate, commercial real estate development, but they were invested in a Chinese group.
Sure.
So the entity were different, but the business was the same.
When you say commercial real estate, do you mean offices or retail?
Shopping malls.
Shopping malls.
Yeah, we focused on retail commercial real estate, which was essentially shopping mall developments. Everything. It could be buying land. And we focus on smaller tier cities. So even in China, I had to go to tier 3 and tier 4 cities, which were maybe 100 kilometers away from maybe the nearest city which has an airport.
Yeah.
My job was, I was head of research there as well, to market size these cities so we know how big of a city, how big of a market, how big of a land we should buy, what price we should pay, what rent we should charge, so on and so forth. So to make it apple to apple, if we have 10 different opportunities, 20 different opportunities, the investors need to know and evaluate which opportunity to pick.
Yeah, very interesting. Let's take a short break now. And when we come back, let's talk about your move to Jakarta, your life in Indonesia, how India influences Southeast Asia historically, and then also talk about what's next for you in your life. So stay tuned and we will be back after these songs.
I'm Chris Jakimick. I served in the United States Air Force and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakimick, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. Store all your guns securely. Help stop suicide. My service never stops.
Brought to you by End Family Fire and the Ad Council.
Hello, I'm Chris Erdman. Every Wednesday at 8 a.m. on KKNW, I sit down with inspiring entrepreneurs, creative minds, and game changers to uncover the real stories behind their business. On my show, Made of More, we explore the challenges that they've overcome, the breakthroughs that they've celebrated, and the mindset that drives them forward. If you're ready to unlock your full entrepreneurial potential, Made of More is the show for you, because here we know you are made of more. Every Wednesday at 8 a.m. on KKNW.
Alternative Talk 1150.
Welcome back to Diaspora on KKNW, where we share interesting stories of first-generation immigrants from South Asia. We are talking to Dhawal Doshi, Senior Research Executive based in Jakarta, Indonesia. Before we jump back into the conversation, if you like listening to our show, please consider following us on Instagram or leaving us a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcast. So, Dhawal, what brought about the move to Indonesia?
You know, if it were for me, I was enjoying my life in Shanghai.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have moved. But my boss had so the same joint venture, the private equity group that we were engaged with, they had a new investment. Actually, it was in Vietnam before I moved to Indonesia. I was in Hanoi, back and forth for about a year and a half. And that's just basically how our business works, where this group invests in real estate entities in different emerging markets in Asia. And we are brought in as the experts in shopping mall development who runs the joint venture company.
Yeah.
So our work in China was coming to an end. And we were almost positioning to go to Vietnam. And, you know, ultimately it didn't really work out as we expected. And another opportunity opened up in Indonesia.
Yeah.
So essentially my boss was brought in as the CEO of this group to run the company. And I just went along with them because I've been with them for a long time.
Yeah.
And that's how I ended up moving to Jakarta.
For someone in this part of the world who is not informed about East and Southeast Asia, it's all Asia. How were Indonesia and China different apart from the fact that you spoke Chinese but didn't speak Bahasa?
So living experience of Indonesia and China were day and night apart.
Okay.
You know, Shanghai is a global city, is a very fast city, not much different than experiences you would have in bigger cities in the West, right? New York, London. And things happen at a breathtaking speed. And yeah, you know, whether it's metros, whether it's roads, infrastructure, it's pretty world class. Indonesia, I had never been to Indonesia before. I had never been to Southeast Asia before. I have taken a class on politics of Southeast Asia, so I had some knowledge of geography. But no, I had never been there. And Indonesia, to someone described, is the world's biggest invisible object. It's the world's fourth most populous nation.
Yeah.
270 million people.
Yeah.
East to west, it's about the size of the US coast to coast, 7,000 kilometers or so.
Yeah.
Jakarta is one of the top, until recently, was the second largest metropolitan area in the world with 35 million people. So some of these statistics, for someone who is not aware, it's overwhelming. There's a lot to take in, but it's a completely different world. It's not as fast paced. People are way more relaxed. It's not very competitive. The weather, it's pretty mild weather pretty much all year round. Traffic, infrastructure, big issue. Coming from China, which is probably one of the leading cities in the world in terms of infrastructure development, coming to Jakarta where there was not even a metro when I moved to Jakarta. It's a very, very big change of pace.
Yeah. India has traditionally had influence in that part of the world, and I want to explore that from an Indian lens. And this is not recent influence. This is thousands of years ago. Do you still see traces of influence of the Indian civilization in that part of the world, specifically in Indonesia, because it's a Muslim country.
90% of the population affiliate with
and
the
I know
Islamic faith. Yeah.
I know Bali is a Hindu state, which when I landed, I didn't know. This was in 2001. And if you're, for example, Christian or Muslim, you're used to the fact that there are people from other countries who speak other languages but have the same religion. India and Hinduism are very tied together. The only Hindu state in the world is Nepal. So for me, it was a huge shock to find people in another country that knew about India and Indian culture. And, now that I know that it's a Hindu part of the country, that makes sense. But do you see those traces in everyday Indonesian life and mainstream Muslim Indonesian life as well?
I mean, it's a very interesting question, and I encourage everyone to come visit Indonesia and experience yourself, because, I'll try to put words to it, but it's something very unique. So, especially if you don't know about it before. So, I lived in a very central part of the city, and my first impression, these two big malls. It has a very strong commercial culture, a lot of shopping malls, pretty global standards. I think KL or Singapore or Bangkok, it comes pretty close when you go to the city center.
KL being Kuala Lumpur.
Kuala Lumpur. Sorry. So the two of the biggest, most prominent malls in the most central area of the city, and you walk in, you have the East Gate and the West Gate, and they were called Arjuna Lobby and the Rama Lobby and the Lakshmana Lobby and the Shinta Lobby, and the national airline of Indonesia is Garuda. Indonesia.
And Garud means?
Yeah, from Ramayana.
Yeah.
It's a bird.
But is it like a vehicle of one of the gods?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And,
one of the Hindu gods.
And, you'd see that in Bali all the time, right? You just come out of Garuda Vishnu, Kanchana, there's big. So, Bali, you see it everywhere. But you go to my office, I have 3 people in my office who are named Indra.
Which is an Indian god.
Which is an Hindu god. And many others. There's Lakshmanas, there's Savitri, there's Aditya as well.
Sure.
All these Hindu names which you don't even hear them in India. But they are there. They're very common. And these people are not Hindus. They're from an Islamic faith.
And it's not a conscious tribute to India, the country. It's just ingrained in their culture.
It's ingrained in their culture. They don't even associate, I think, this with the Hindu culture.
Okay.
They just consider it as if it was their own. They don't see a distinction between, you can still be an Indra and be Islamic. There is no, in their mind, there is no.
I find that fascinating.
It is very fascinating. And you will see that even in architecture. If you go to Jakarta, there's one of the very beautiful Hindu temple as well over there, the Prambanan temple. So for the ones interested, there is a very strong Hindu, the words you speak in the Bahasa itself is coming from Bhasha, right?
Yeah.
It's called Bahasa Indonesia. But many words have a Sanskrit origin. So that is the historic aspect. It's weaved into everyday life in a way which can't separate it from everyday life. But it's also, even the modern, I think Indian movies, the Bollywood movies are very popular in Indonesia as well. They release Bollywood movies in local theaters.
Yeah.
And about half the people are Indonesians.
Yeah.
Right? Just one anecdote I have. So in the first 2 or 3 months that I moved to Indonesia, I had to travel to smaller cities just as I did in China. And I had to go to a city called Tianak. It's in West Borneo, West Kalimantan. And we were looking at a site, and we went to the local governor's office because we always need to meet the government to know about the future plans and infrastructure development plans. And while I was waiting there with my Indonesian colleagues, I heard some music in very mild. in a very low volume, but there was something, and it struck me. Something felt familiar. And I listened to it carefully. I asked everyone else to stop talking. It was actually a song from Jab Tak Hai Jaan. And I was so surprised. They are playing Jab Tak Hai Jaan in Pontianak, in this governor's office at 9 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
And then the governor walked out, and I was so surprised. I said, "Oh, you're listening to Bollywood song."
Yeah.
Not only that, he said, "Oh, yeah, a very nice song. You have Katrina Kaif, you have Shah Rukh Khan." So they know these people. And not just that.
Yeah.
While we were leaving, I was called back, and there were two women in the office who chose to take a photo with me.
Yeah.
I think that was a very interesting experience. We were at the airport waiting for a flight back, and there was some Hindi commercial soap opera serial going on the airport TV with subtitles in Bahasa. So it's there.
And I think most Indians have no idea that of Bollywood's influence, be it Indonesia, be it in Morocco, be it in East Africa, be it in Nigeria. Indian films are actually very, very popular and widespread. So that's a great story. How are Indian people perceived in Indonesia?
I think in general, Indian people are well respected. It is not uncommon to have Indian bosses for Indonesians.
Okay.
A lot of Indonesian groups as well as international groups, their top leadership comes from India, especially on the technical side.
Sure.
So a lot of engineers tend to be Indians. People are okay with having Indian bosses. Generally, they're happy to have Indian bosses. And I think Bollywood helps. So thank you, Bollywood.
Yeah.
But I think we are well respected. And so very interestingly, I think 3 out of 10 times that I take a taxi, the taxi driver is such a big fan of Bollywood that he's going to start singing songs.
Yeah.
He's going to ask about, he knows more Indian actors, actresses and movies than I would.
Yeah.
And they are genuinely very happy about it. Someone started to play songs of Kuch Kuch Hota Hai or something just because they knew I was Indian.
Yeah. I'm going to include a link to Jab Tak Hai Jaan and Kuch Kuch Hota Hai in the show notes. So now you've recently started doing an MBA at the University of Chicago. So what prompted that decision, A, to do an MBA and B, an American university when you're presumably out of this world for now and the sphere of influence of the US? So what prompted these two decisions?
I've always wanted to pursue higher education. So
Yeah.
after finishing my bachelor's in UT, which I graduated in 2009, I've not had a chance to pursue a master's. In between Shanghai and Jakarta, I did have a few months where I considered doing an MBA or some master's. Then I researched few programs. One of them was in Johns Hopkins University and Nanjing University. They have a tie-up. I very seriously considered that. I considered a couple of programs in Shanghai, in Hong Kong, even in Singapore. But then I got a job, which was very exciting. And I put those education plans on the side because the work was very interesting.
Yeah.
And I started to work. It was very fast-paced. I got married in 2020. Then COVID hit. So I didn't really have a time to pursue higher education. Now I have an 18-month-old son. So I realized that there's never going to be a perfect time to study. But I really had to study because I've worked for such a long time. I wanted to go back to school, brush up my technical knowledge, learn something new. But I didn't want to leave work. So the only other option was to do a program which allows me to work while I study.
Yeah.
And that's how I realized that executive MBA is probably the best way forward.
Yeah. In our part of the world, people do their MBA right after their undergrad. And it's mainly a tool to increase the salary that you are eligible for. The learning is not really, or the peer group even is not the criteria. It's the name of the university, the stamp, and the higher salary. I found immense value in waiting for a few years before going to the London Business School. And like you, I was in an executive program. Do you feel that gap in between is helping you more and allowing you to benefit more from the program?
I mean, absolutely. I don't know what it would have been had I was a liberal arts graduate. I did not have an accounting or a finance kind of specific background. Looking back, if I spent one more year and did an accounting program, would it have helped? Perhaps that would have been a good decision as well. But clearly, doing an executive MBA now is adding a lot of value.
Yeah.
The average age is 37, 38. That's how
Yeah.
there's some of the reasons why I picked Chicago Booth.
Yeah.
I think it's one of them. 7 programs, the only one of them, 7 MBA programs, which lists the top
Yeah.
US MBA schools, which had a full-time campus outside of the US. They have full-time campuses in Hong Kong, in London, and in Chicago,
Yeah.
where they fly in professors from Chicago to those
Yeah.
campuses. So you get the exact same degree,
Yeah.
exact same studies as the full-time MBA, but just that it's in Hong Kong. And I've been out of China for more than about 10 years.
Yeah.
So I wanted a program which connects me to China again.
Yeah.
And because Chicago Booth was based in Hong Kong,
Sure.
it just zeroed in on Chicago. It ticked many boxes.
Yeah. And potentially our third friend Sid and I, who are in Seattle, get to see you back in the US as a result of that MBA, which would
We'll
make
see.
us very happy. That was a great conversation. Let's move into our weekly segments and let's spin the wheel and see what we land on. So this one is called Maa Ka Khana, which for our listeners in Hindi means mother's food. Do you have a favorite food from home? And with the caveat that you have many homes, something that you always like to go back to and it's sort of a comfort and nostalgia for you, be it in Surat, in Shanghai, in Austin, or in Jakarta.
So the context obviously is I am a pure vegetarian.
Yeah.
And I lived in China and I did not cook.
Yeah.
Not the easiest of combinations.
Yeah.
So whenever I did go back home, my favorite comfort food was actually simple home food. Dal, rice, roti, and I don't know, cabbage, vegetable or something like that. So that is really my comfort food.
Yeah.
In fact, I used to fall sick, not when I lived in China, but when I go back to India.
Yeah.
And I fall sick because I eat a lot.
Sure.
You're invited, you're social, and people want to make fancy food. And the fancy food kind of made me sick.
Yeah. In between your body retaining more water because of the heat and the air quality and all the amazing food that you eat, I give myself 2 pounds of weight gain per week of vacation in India. So the last time I was there for a month, I gained 8 pounds. I picked up a vada pav at the airport. I didn't even wait till I get home. So I totally get where you're coming from.
And my comfort food, so I would consider China somewhat of a home.
Yeah.
And there's they call it 土豆丝. It's a shredded potatoes.
Okay.
And it could either be spicy. It's a mix of spicy and sour.
Okay.
Sometimes it has, it also has green peppers. I really like that. In China, I could have it in mainland China. It was pretty easily available. Outside of it, I haven't really been able, because it's not very fancy food.
Sure.
So you go to nice Chinese restaurants, they're not necessarily going to have it. I found that on the menu here. So, I'm waiting to have that before I hop on the flight.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we're out of time. So that brings us to the end of today's episode. Thank you for listening to Diaspora. We hope you enjoyed hearing Dhawal Doshi's very unique story. Remember to check out our show notes for links and more information about the topics discussed in today's episode. Diaspora is part of the Speaking Current network of shows and podcasts, all of which are dedicated to inspiring listeners to build lives of meaning, connection, and value. You can find the Speaking Current network of shows, including Diaspora, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube. Lastly, if you know someone who has a story that can be shared on our show, feel free to reach out to us on any of our social media handles. We'll be back next week with another interesting story from the South Asian diaspora. Until then, take care and stay curious. And Dhawal, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me.